Yes, I'm recording it now.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks, Phyllis. So personally, I've just been curious, and over the last probably month, 6 weeks, I've been kind of watching and going into trying to figure out who's doing what online, how they're doing it, and just, again, that's my own personal curiosity. So that's what I'm bringing to the table. What you can expect. So from this hour long, the goal is to talk about how we move open houses online specifically. We can perhaps address other things, time permits. Most importantly, how do we create connection or maintain connection now that we've gone online? You know, so much of the Toastmasters experience has been someone would, I know at our club, they'd open the door, they'd walk into the community room and we'd be like, ah, welcome. And we'd always be very excited. We'd shake hands, we'd ask where they were from, how they heard about us. So there was a lot of very up close and personal social experience. And we've lost that, at least temporarily, if not possibly for a portion, certainly a portion of the next few months. And I'm going to read a quote from, it's from the marketing manager of brand and strategic partnerships at HubSpot. And one of her comments, I thought she put it pretty nicely and to the point, which is virtual events can easily lose one of the best benefits of live events, which is human connection. And to mitigate that, keeping the event engaging and getting the audience involved is really a top priority. And I feel like as I listen to various Toastmasters and some in my own club, connection is something that we really want to make sure we maintain. So those are the two areas: is open houses online, what do they look like now? And how do we create connection? So one of the ways we create connection is by having activities or engagement. And throughout this meeting, there'll be times where I'll say, okay, we're going to stop and we're going to do a little activity. Super easy, not necessarily complicated, but the idea is to shift, connect, and create the connection online. A little bit different than what we would normally experience in the Toastmasters meeting, but it's to engage. So one of the things I'm going to ask is that you take advantage of this chat box tonight. I'm assuming most of you are familiar with it, but you just drop down to the chat box, go online. If I ask a question or you want to share how your club might address a question that I've asked, please put it in there. I want this to be active. I want it to be engaged. Do not worry about me necessarily reading them. It's more about what you all can learn from each other. Does that make sense? Can I get a few head nods if everybody's still hearing okay? Great, thank you. All right, the first step in creating an online Toastmasters meeting, a successful one, a well-organized one that's filled with kind of life and vibrancy and again, that human connection, is the leadership team should create a vision for success. And while all members can be part of this process, it really is up to the officer team to kind of set the goal, set the strategy. What do we want it to look like? So one of the things you have to do is ask yourself, what would success look like? What would it look like to have a successful open house? Would it be the number of guests that participated, that actually showed up on your Zoom open house? Or would it be guests who actually turned into members? Would that be considered success because you're working towards DCP goals? Would there be a theme for this meeting? Do you want to have a theme? And what might that theme look like? Because that will set the tone for this meeting. Is it, in this meeting right now, this pandemic has changed so much about our lives. A lot of people are worried about jobs and what is their job going to be waiting for them? Some people can work, some people can't. So one of the things I might ask is, would you like to have a theme? And might that theme revolve around perhaps interview skills? Networking changed. Networking has definitely changed because it's going to be mostly online through either LinkedIn or through text or through whatever it happens to be, whatever the platforms that people use for social media. Much more than it will be that handshake, let's meet for lunch, let's grab a cup of coffee, that kind of thing. So networking may look different. Just any general job seeking activity might be an interesting theme. So once you've got the vision of what success would look like, what your meeting would look like, the kind of overall tone, you want to organize, excuse me, an open house committee. And the open house committee would have a chair, possibly a co-chair, That way they can share the responsibility of overseeing this event. There'd probably be someone who would be involved in promotion and getting the word out. Someone engaged in membership or interested in greeting and engaging and kind of pulling in the guest and getting them over the hurdle to actually join. If we're using a platform, and this will be one of the decisions you have to make, which platform are you using? Most people, I feel like most people are using Zoom. And again, you guys can all go on the chat feature and just say, we're using Zoom, we're using Teams for Microsoft, or we're using Google Hangouts. But it seems like most people are using Zoom if they're in Toastmasters. So you might want a tech host, and you might want what I think of as just the meeting host, or someone who can watch, kind of keep an eye on your chat box. If you are part of a corporate environment that is providing the Zoom, and they have a Zoom account, and it's a much bigger company, one of the things we found out recently, for example, is you have the opportunity in a larger organization that's paying for it to have a Q&A box as well. And so the chatting can go on in terms of, I can network with Tamsin and Dennis and chat about things, but I can also go in and I can ask questions of the presenter or whoever's leading the meeting. So you've got your tech host, your meeting host, you've got your promotion, your membership. Now you need to schedule a date and time. And right now we're in a funny place because we don't have to worry about graduations. We don't have to worry about schools out, because it definitely is out. Probably the next big holiday would be July. So if you're thinking about doing something sooner than later, just contemplate whether you want to do it the week of or the week, again, before or after 4th of July. You still have time to do one this month. And there is an incentive that hopefully Eldred will talk about a little bit later in the meeting. And I hope you guys are using the chat feature to share some ideas. Now, I mentioned we were going to talk about connections. So I'm going to stop here where we're at next steps. And I'm going to ask you to go on the chat feature. I'm going to ask you to, just 2 words, put where you're calling in from, and 1 word that represents paradise. So where you're calling in from, 1 word that represents paradise. And just go ahead and put that in the chat feature and let everybody see it. Okay. You've picked the day, you've got the committee, you've got things squared away. And some of the things I want you to think about as the meeting approaches and you're at the meeting. So you need to be thinking about this ahead of time, but at the meeting, some things to consider. Who are the key players in your club that would be great in filling the meeting roles? And by that I think you need someone who can project and who is comfortable facilitating meetings as the Toastmaster. You'll have somebody managing the platform and again, the meeting itself, like the actual platform, but the Toastmaster will be so critical, as you all know, because they set the tone for the meeting and keep it moving. You'll also want somebody who can be what I think of as an intentional speaker. And when I say intentional, it just means they understand the value of sharing their story or their experience with Toastmasters and the value it's brought to them, either their career, their personal life, work that they do for their work, they do in the community in terms of service, or somehow how it's impacted them. Maybe they're an author of a book, they needed to do some sort of either a pitch to get the book published, or when they had to do a book signing. Whatever the case may be, whatever brings people to Toastmasters, we want somebody who can speak to that. You want a focused table topics master, and by focused I mean someone who's really kind of managing the process. And online, instead of saying something, for example, is, do I have any volunteers? You want somebody to be saying, looking around the room and figuring out who doesn't have a role, and say, I'm going to pick or select the people that don't have roles. Start with a stronger speaker, someone who's comfortable, isn't going to show their nerves right away. I know in our club, we have a couple new members who haven't spoken up much yet, so we wouldn't necessarily want to pick them first. Then, of course, speech evaluator, general evaluator, timer, and grammarian. And one of the things you want to think about is allowing time on your agenda. Again, you want to have a very thought out, deliberate agenda. Is time on your agenda to allow for Q&A. So allow for your guests to ask questions and get a feel for what's happening. All right, how will guests be welcomed? So again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. In the past, the door would open, everybody would say hello. So what is that going to look like now? Tonight, for example, Tamsin and I arrived a little bit early and we were waiting for people to come in. You can allow, I guess what I would call it is unofficial start time. So if you're meeting, my club meets at noon on Thursdays. If you're meeting at noon, you could open up as early as 11:30 and invite your guests to come in a little bit sooner, and there's an opportunity for you to engage. Some of the things you might think about during this unofficial start is who will be the greeter? Who will engage with the guests? Who will ask them about their contact information? I think this is very important. You need to think about how do we capture their contact information? And again, I tend to think of emails. I know some people like to text, some people like to immediately go to LinkedIn. But my question would be, who's going to collect that and how? In our club, I believe our membership VP just asked somebody to message her in the chat box privately so she could gather that information. And she took it from there. But again, it's just something to think about very intentionally, because you don't want it to be one of those things like, did you get their email? Did I? No, I didn't. Oh, they slipped away. We also want to get it earlier than later, because in case they have to go, or in case they decide that, it's time to move on, they leave the meeting very abruptly, we don't have that information. Some of the things that you can do in that same kind of unofficial start time is, if there are some experienced Toastmasters there, use that opportunity to give what Leanna Lindquist calls testimonials. So testimonies as to why you joined Toastmasters, what brought you to Toastmasters originally, how you've grown from it. You kind of want to ease into, I guess I would call it easing into the official start time. Logistics and strategies. So again, this is kind of the same theme in terms of thinking about guests becoming members, is how do we stay engaged with them? Excuse me. What is the sign-in process? Is there a sign-in process? I've seen some fabulous sign-in sheets online, but again, you have to figure out when you're going to grab that information. If you're ending the meeting with a Q&A, what are the kinds of topics you want to make sure that, oops. What are the topics that you want to make sure you cover before they walk out they don't walk out the door, they disconnect, and make sure that they have. So for example, do you want to reference dues? Do you want to reference mentor support, onboarding, a new member orientation program? Do you want to give them a slight, what I call a very brief overview of pathways, so they understand that Toastmasters has an education platform that we all work off of? You want to describe any next steps, anything like that. So again, just wanting to think through as they come into the meeting, as they are leaving the meeting, how do you want to handle that? Make sure that you're entering into and exiting out of are not abrupt. Sometimes at our meeting, somebody just suddenly at 1 o'clock, boom, they wave and disconnect. It's always good if you have guests or newer members to arrive a little bit early, let them ease in. And if they have to leave, or if they want to stay on and ask any questions, they can. Is there an opportunity to do any, before you close the sale, ask them about, do they have any questions about joining? Try and figure out if they have any obstacles, are there any challenges, or anything they're hesitant about, so that you can address those. And then close the meeting with asking them to join. They can always say no. They can always say, I'd like to come back, but always ask if they are interested in joining. Do you want to have a drawing? Do you want to have a raffle? If so, do you want to order those? Do you need to order or want to order those things a few weeks in advance so you have those to hand out? I would also, I guess, ask, do they have a preference for how they are contacted? And then the last thing is, traditionally, many of us hand a guest packet, say, here you go. This has lots of good information about Toastmasters. What does that look like now? Most likely that's going to be an online. Again, every club does it a little bit differently, but I would encourage you to think about at least an online packet of sorts. They would get an email, and there could be linked to there's a pathways description, the features, values, and benefits. Toastmasters wears many hats. I mean, there's a number of useful pieces of information that you could potentially send them that would hopefully make them comfortable enough to return and or join. All right. We are going to take a short stop here. And again, we're going to talk connection. And I hope I'm not throwing people off, but apparently, whoever the gurus are who manage meetings say that about every 10 minutes you want to shake things up. And this is where I'm going to encourage you to think about, not just here when I ask you to do it, but to think about how you can incorporate these little exercises, again, to connect. So I'm going to ask everybody to grab a piece of paper and a pen. It doesn't have to be a fancy piece of paper. It doesn't have to be a fancy pen. And I'm going to ask you to write one word of what leadership means to you. And again, the goal here is not fancy artwork. I just wrote experience. I don't know if you can see that because my light is shining so bright. Just hold it up to the camera so that we can all see it. This could be on a Post-it note. Confidence. What else do we have? Tamsin, are you able to see a couple other screens to share what other people have?
I see service.
Ah, nice.
I see, ooh, I'm trying to. Unfortunately, I can't see. Hold on, I'm going to have to go into, it's really small. Can people hold it up closer? There we go. Messy.
The word was leadership, is that the word?
Service. Again, service. Peace. Empathy. Effective. Example.
Nice.
And commitment. Charles Keller, I cannot read yours. Can you say it out loud for me? You're muted. Charles.
Honor. H-O-N-O-R.
We also, oh, thank you for putting them in the chat. Empowerment. Open to mistakes. Support. Integrity. Couple people do integrity.
All right. Well, again, the purpose here is to kind of bring us back to each other, to share some ideas and to get people thinking. And again, the idea here is to shake things up a little bit. One of the reasons I'm standing to give my presentation, and quite a few other people have mentioned this, is when you stand, you are able to use your gestures more. If you use your gestures more, you're more engaged with the audience. It catches them kind of, oh, what's she doing up there? Why is she doing that? It kind of keeps them, people in the audience listening, or people on the screen listening. People need a little bit of that every 10 minutes or so in a meeting. So about every 10 minutes, they need something. That's what's so nice about when we're in the meeting. We're getting up and down, right? As we go through, the Toastmaster does the introductions, they bring up a speaker, the speaker sits down, bring up another speaker, the table topics master, we're constantly moving and things are constantly changing. So how do we create that in an online environment? A lot of educators and trainers are saying that this is the way to do it. Add some little fun things to just kind of break things up, encourage people to stand up. In one case, you can also just, the Toastmaster could just say, go to your left, go to your right. And again, it's just the idea of you're moving a little bit. You're not just sitting straight in your chair. All right, moving on. We are going to have time for a Q&A at the end. If you want to put anything in the chat box, you're welcome to. But we will have that opportunity for exchange. And we are at the time of talking more about creating connections. Creating connections, there's a lot, as I mentioned, there are quite a few ways of doing this. Just fun little things like, how many people here, show of hands, and again, I can only see a few of you. Show of hands, who knows about the Zoom high five? So you can high five whoever's above you in the grid boxes, high five the person next to you, or the people down below. So again, the idea is just shake things up. Hey, everybody, give a high five, a Zoom high five. So just have some fun with it. Some people might call it dancing. Some people might just call it, again, it's just a fun way of doing it. You can also invite people out of their Zoom box in terms of where they are and who's pointing to them. So you could say, where is Tamsin? And then everybody just points, depending on where, like right now, she's below. And it's just to get people kind of breaking up and getting to know each other a little bit, and they're, how should I say it? Not sitting. You could also do play with would you rather. So again, this is sometimes we've used it as table topics, but we're going to shorten it down a little bit. Would you rather, and then you can hold up one finger for option 1 or 2 fingers for option 2. Would you rather go to the beach or the mountains? So beach would be 1, mountains would be 2. And the idea is you're just asking people to kind of engage quickly. What would be other? Pizza or pasta? So pizza, you just hold up your hand. Pasta, you hold up the other one. Ebooks, paper book. So it's just a way of asking people and engaging people and getting them involved. One that I have found fun, again, it could be a table topics, but it could break the ice in terms of asking people to move around, particularly if you have an hour-and-a-half meeting, you want to get people up and about and moving, is take 60 seconds, get up, and I'm going to actually ask everybody to do this. I'm going to ask everybody, so we're doing well on time, get up, go somewhere in the house, and find something that represents what you love to do, whatever that might be. Find something that represents whatever you love to do. And then come on back with that object. I'm going to call in a couple different people. But Neil, do you have anything? What is aha?
Yes, I have a shoe. I like to walk a lot.
Awesome. Okay, so use that while you're walking. All right, and Neil, what have you got for us? Can you unmute and share with us why that shoe's important to you?
Oh, because I like to walk, so it's very useful.
I'm sorry, I got you mixed up with Vanille up above who was holding the phone, and I thought he meant that he liked to walk with that. So you've got this shoe, and you're saying you like to walk, and that's what that means to you. Awesome. Thank you, Neil. Vanille, who is not Neil.
Thank you.
Why is that phone important to you?
It has everything. I can do anything and everything with this.
Awesome. All right. Don't lose it. Charles.
The whitewater kayaking helmet, also a substitute bike helmet, which I both love.
Nice. Excellent. And I can't see everybody, but I'm just going to call it a name. Phyllis, what do you have?
I have my Nikon camera.
Ooh. And why is that important to you?
Because everywhere I go, I want to have a memory from that particular event. And so I do several of these.
Awesome. Is Bob Hall on this call? Okay, how about Dennis?
Yes.
Oh.
It took me a while to put the dog leash down to find the mute button.
Awesome. And I take it that you guys, don't you do a lot of walking?
I do.
Yeah.
That is Hamilton Mountain in the background.
Nice.
We walked up to the top of that with the dog in March.
Awesome. Okay. Dennis, how about you? Dennis is holding something up, but I can't see it.
Here we go. I just have a binder of my recipes that I use to cook.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite recipe?
Not really. Usually something with shrimp in it.
Ooh, nice. All right. Well, I ran around last night because I was in a meeting. The National Speakers Association had a meeting. They did this particular task, and I picked up a puzzle because I like problem solving. And you know, again, this is just something fun. If you want to do it in an open house situation to break ice, there is some thought that the icebreaker speech is a really critical and important moment for each Toastmaster, but maybe you could have little mini moments to, again, break the ice as people are coming into the room. If you're going to have some sort of, you want to have a little bit more social aspect before the meeting begins, I would just encourage you to do that. I want to throw out a statistic that I found interesting. Show of hands, how many are doodlers? Do any people do you like to doodle while you're either in a meeting or on the, I don't know. Okay, so when something's communicated in words, you're going to remember about 10% of it. But if you add imagery to it, you're going to remember 35% of it. But if you add imagery and words, people are going to remember 65% of it. So if you can kind of think about letting people doodle, maybe they're not looking at the camera all the time. You're wondering, is that person even paying attention? Have they drifted off to do something on another computer or on their phone? Just go ahead and tell people, if you want to doodle, doodle, and then ask them to show their work. Have them hold it up. They can also just, I guess I would say doodle words, like words that they're thinking about or that come up as they listen to the speaker or as they listen to people do speech evaluations. Let's see. There's one you can also play where it was a little confusing, but again, if you play it more than once, you can have some fun with it, which is you have the rock. So let's say on this grid of people, I private message Bob Hall and I say, Bob Hall, you've got the rock. And I let everybody know that I've given it out. Nobody knows who it is except for Bob. And then you kind of have to guess who might have it. And then you can ask some questions or, you know, whatever. But it's just a way of, again, kind of playing with things. The other thought is the alphabet game. Alphabet game is you do names. So Zac Efron. Zac Efron's an actor. His last name ends with N. Can anybody think of anybody's name who starts with N? Nancy Drew. No. For that last initial is, so with Nancy Drew, it would be the W. Nelson Mandela, it would be the A. For some reason, the only name that's coming up is Abercrombie and Fitch, in which case it would be A. So you just kind of just play with these. Just see, again, you're trying to break the ice, but you're trying to create connection with your team. So while it's not traditional or it doesn't fall under the Toastmasters, I guess, overall like education platform, these are
Kathleen, you have frozen.
You could just dress up. You could dress up for particular, if you have a certain meeting theme, like let's say it is interview skills. Everybody dresses up like they're going to go to an interview. You can also do pass the word. And passing the word is, again, just to get people moving, is I've got an imaginary ball and I throw it at Neil and I say popcorn. And then Neil grabs that ball and he throws it to somebody else and he says whatever name. And you just it's again to get your body moving and to get you up out of the seat and to be engaging with people. So I guess the last one, I think we talked about this one, where in the world is. We did that with Tamsin in terms of trying to figure it out. But those are some just little playful, fun, lighthearted things to do to create engagement, keep people talking. And you can do some of this like we did it here, or you can do it via the chat box. And the idea here is to create ways to engage. And I want to say that one of the ways I would highly recommend people really play with the chat box, because for the longest time, if I had a question, I go in and I put a question like, when are we going to do X? And then I realized, wait, I could really be using this. So every time somebody speaks, I send them a bravo, a good job. We had a timer doing the timer roll today. She was new. Great job timing. Somebody who I know is struggling with speaking. That was a wonderful speech. Easy to follow, easy. So in a way, we're giving them, everybody, not just one or two speakers, but everybody in the room, some positive feedback. And I think any new member is going to feel, or guest to a new member, if they get something like that, is going to feel welcomed. All right, moving along. I promise to talk to you about at least 20 ways to promote your club. And I'm sure there's quite a few more. But if you're going to do and this can be promote your club, but primarily I was thinking of open houses virtually and online. When we're done with this section, I'm going to try and open it up for a few minutes, actually at least 15 minutes of let's see, what time is it? 7:34. Yeah, we'll have at least, I think 15 minutes of Q&A. I reserved the room for an extra 15 minutes if anybody wants to stay on and do any brainstorming, ask any other questions that we can't address by 8 o'clock. So an open house is a great way to introduce potential members to the Toastmasters experience. It creates the opportunity for us to kind of highlight what we do, the benefits, and just address any curiosities that they may have. So in the environment that we're in today, I'm going to say it's probably the easiest way to communicate is going to be by communicating in some format of social media, particularly any social media. I think it tends to be Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter are going to be the probably the 4 most popular. And I like something that Eric Bergman, who's a member of my club, said, just pick one and do it really well, or do it once a week, which could be really well. Pick one. Don't feel like you have to do all, but maybe ask the person, not necessarily sitting next to you, but I could say to a Tamsin, do you like Instagram? Would you do Instagram while I do Facebook? Neil, I might ask Neil, if you do Twitter, would you tweet about our club? So you can all share the responsibility of engaging. But this is a way for you to get the word out, is post it. Let people know it's happening. Repost in the sense of sharing it to other people, have other members in your club share your original post. In LinkedIn, you could potentially create a group and then share it through LinkedIn. But the important thing is to kind of be active and engaged and using it, not just post it and let it go and call it good. You want to be engaged with it, particularly with LinkedIn, because if you are anticipating the open house, then after the open house, if you've already told people, I can't wait to go to that open house later today, great meeting, great online meeting at my Toastmasters Club today. We're looking for new members. Anybody join us? Great speech. Highlight something that was there. But post an invite, ask people to share it. You can create event pages, create a meaningful content for the post. Take some time to think it through. Don't just kind of put up a few words. Try and make it meaningful in terms of the value and the benefit. And then certainly monitor your accounts. Monitor the account so you kind of get a feel for if people are responding, they look like you want to build excitement. And then you could potentially create a video, like a virtual invite via video, and like do a Facebook. You could do it on the club website if you have a free toast host. So those are all options in terms of using social media. The district has a meetup account, and I would highly recommend that everybody create a meetup for their particular club. And go in and modify or change or update if you already have one. That way, if you use the district account, you don't have to pay for it, and all you have to do is send Phyllis Harmon an email letting her know that you would like access the district meetup so that you can post a meetup about your club. Every now and then, every few months, I'd go in and check it and make sure it's up to date. Some clubs have had success on Craigslist, posting things on Craigslist. I don't think our club's ever done that, so I can't speak to it, but it's something to consider. And I know that some clubs have had success with Nextdoor. Nextdoor is just a neighborhood. If I sign up in my local neighborhood, I can basically invite anybody in the neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods to come to our meeting. Free toast host, you can put the invite on the landing page. You can set up an Eventbrite. Recently, I would encourage everybody to go on Eventbrite and just type in the search box, type in Toastmasters and see what comes up. Toastmasters open houses. A number of them have come up, and that gives you an opportunity to post a picture It gives you the opportunity to post a description, and then it gives you an opportunity to ask people to register if you want. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth considering. So consider Eventbrite, and super easy to use, and there's no fee. For those people that you are in close contact with, either through LinkedIn or maybe just through email, go ahead and reach out to them. We're in a unique opportunity because we can reach out to people, let's say alumni, people that we went to college with, that we're still in touch with, if they're in New York or Japan or Timbuktu. We have the opportunity to reach out to them and say, come visit our club, see what's happening. It's also an opportunity for us to, invite. I was at an event for my son's school. He's long graduated from it. And I just happened to meet other parents of the same class. So we hadn't seen each other for 10 or 15 years. And that day, anytime anybody asks me, what have you been up to? I said, Toastmasters. And it was remarkable. Some people stepped back and some people were like, really? I've heard of Toastmasters. I hate public speaking. Why do you do it? It opened a door to a conversation. Those are the kind of people you want to reach out to and engage with and say, please come. Flyers are a little bit, I'm going to try and show you some flyers in a minute because Toastmasters has just come up with 2 flyers for virtual meetings. And then networking organizations. Think about the organizations, associations, anywhere you belong. Those are people that you might want to invite. Corporate clubs, can I have a show of hands of how many people here are part of corporate clubs? Tamsin, can you help me see them? Because I'm not seeing everybody. Do we have very many?
For the videos, I think I've seen 3. There's few people that do not have their videos on. So I'm seeing like 2 or 3 maybe. So
really quickly, if your company is, let's see, if you're not currently meeting in-house, you still may be having Zoom town hall meetings, project meetings, intra-office communications, things of that sort, then I would certainly put the invite out there. If you have an opportunity to post flyers or forward flyers, I would do that as an invitation. If there's a way to use your club banner or kind of tie it in, I know a lot of people have it behind them, sometimes hanging behind them, but you can have some fun there as well. But I think the ideas here is create connection, look for people who you think would benefit, and just invite them to come. They don't have to make a commitment up front, but let them know the value you get out of it. All right, it is now I feel like we've covered the bulk of the material I wanted to get done, but I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity for any kind of Q&A or brainstorming. So I will go out of my presentation mode and perhaps we can do that. Come on. Come on. So I'm having a little technical difficulty here. If anybody would like to ask questions, I can start talking.
Are you trying to stop sharing your screen, Kathleen?
Well, thank you. That's probably what it was. Here's that grace period I was talking about earlier. All right.
And as an FYI, Dennis has raised his hand. I believe he has something he has to say.
Okay. Dennis, where are you?
I'm right here. You mentioned about they have pre-made flyers online on the Toastmasters website. Where are they on the Toastmaster website?
Thank you. Just one sec. I will show you. Oh, hold on one sec. I'm gonna have to stop sharing for just a moment. I had them all pulled up. So if you, everybody is, these are under the resources tab. Is everybody from, I can show you by sharing my screen, but I think I would just say go to Toastmasters International and hold on one second. I'm going to show you one of them. There we go. So this is one. You are virtually invited to attend. This is a brand new one that they just brought out. And it's just an opportunity for you to use to something like this and fill it out and send it on its way. What I think is interesting, and this will be, I will make a comment, is please accept this with a grain of salt. I would say do dress to impress when you're having an open house, because what I've noticed as we've become more comfortable with Zoom, we're also getting more comfortable stretching and yawning and scratching chins and things of that sort. So just be careful of that when I say that. And let me see if there should be another one here. Just one sec. I'm gonna have to stop sharing to get it. And this is another option. Right here, you're virtually invited. Please join our online meeting. And then I will just show you, this is what I meant by the resource library. So if you just go to the resources tab, I just went to Toastmasters International Resources tab. It may ask you to log in, but these are also, there's a corporate flyer. The billboard ad templates is for email, not for an actual billboard. And then some advertisements that you can play with. And you'll know they come in different sizes. So some of them allow you to play with sizing. And then, so one's gonna be more like a postcard versus an actual like 8.5 by 11. And then I believe this is the newer, the one over here on the my far right, is the newer invitation to an open house, showing person, you know, feeling stressed and then relaxed and happy after a Toastmasters meeting. But resources tab is also useful. There's a Let the World Know is a manual on PR and publicity. And within that manual, they have a number of templates that you can use to promote your business. That's the other thing I would share. In your local community, I would reach out to your a contact. Usually it's the community events, but it can also just be the newspaper editor, and introduce yourself. Have somebody from the club introduce themselves and share what the Toastmasters has gone online and what we've been doing, and the fact that Toastmasters is celebrating its 80th birthday this year, and you know, help them understand the value that Toastmasters has in the local community. I know that we've had great success through our local newspaper with, when Eric earned his DTM, they did a lovely profile on him, nice picture and then a nice story. And then a year or so later, one of our members had joined Toastmasters because she had to give a speech in front of a professional association of like maybe 200 people. And she did so well that they actually flew her back east to talk in front of about 500 people. And we decided to contact the local newspaper and say, hey, this is an example of what Toastmasters can do for somebody. And then they did a story on numerous club members of ours. They highlighted Barbara, but they sent out a photographer, and it's definitely worth reaching out to them. You can reach out to them by phone or email, introduce yourself, and then ask what stories they might be interested in for the community. Some local newspapers also have like events calendars. Make sure that some of those are online now, and you can just add them, or you can ask them to add it. Other questions?
Hi, this is Paul Matulak. I'm with Washington Street Toastmasters.
Hi, Paul.
I have I guess a two-part question. The first question would be, for our open houses, we've traditionally used Evite to have a platform for promoting our event, and also as a way of collecting potential guest information.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to see if there were other suggestions from other clubs that have worked really well. I heard that Eventbrite might be another way to collect that information and get people to register, but I'd be really interested in hearing if there's other platforms that we could look into. Maybe Kathleen, you've had experience with that, or others that are on the call.
Well, let's open it up to everybody first, because I've done a lot of talking. So I'd love to ask, Paul's looking for ideas and suggestions, and I'm assuming you want to do it all electronically. Is that correct?
Yeah, just a place where we could have people register online and also provide us with their information so that we can contact them right away, and we have that information in our database.
Okay. Does anybody on the call, has anybody had experience with either Eventbrite or any other option like that?
Yeah, paper form. It is on paper form.
Pepper form.
Paper form. I will just put it on the chat. It is paper form.
Great. So is that kind of like a, can you describe what that is?
Yeah, this is a registration things platform. So every flyer we put these things, this URL from paper form and on our flyer. So everybody can just click that and register. So it goes to the database on the on paper form. And from there, you actually, in paper form itself, you can design how you like to have any data you want the registration for the future participant wants to fill. For example, the name, the email, the phone, maybe which country, which Toastmaster they belong to, and even you can go divide it to between Toastmaster yes or no. If no, then where they come, how they know you, and then if it is yes, which club do you belong to, how long you've been there, for example, and etc. It serves that kind of service.
Great. And you'll put the name in the chat so everybody can see it. Thank you.
Thanks,
Any other folks that have experience with something like that?
I've used SurveyMonkey before. And SurveyMonkey is a great way to create an engaging questionnaire that can be sent out maybe to previous members of a club. I'm actually doing a open house reunion in 2 weeks for professionally speaking. And so what I'll be doing is sending out an Eventbrite invite, but at the same time, I'm also going to try to encourage engagement with a questionnaire, about, hey, do you remember, how many times did you come to our club? What was your experience? It's going to go out to people who've come by and maybe had been members at one point or another. And so I'm going to do an email blast in that sense, and then gather some data from SurveyMonkey.
Excellent. And I think that's important, particularly when I think of Toastmasters for Speaking Professionals, is because my understanding is you have moved a little bit over the last couple of years, right? Is that correct?
We were meeting at US Digital, and we've gone entirely Zoom as US Digital has restricted access right now. And so for the time being, we're just meeting over Zoom, but we've had such great turnout, and we've just got 2 new members, even using the Zoom platform. I think a lot of people do prefer it as long as you run a tight meeting.
Yes.
And you really do. I think there's some groups less so than others. So I think it's really important that each group focus also on just getting their meetings down to a science and really making it a solid meeting, so that when you do have guests each time, to really make sure to impress them with how well that meeting is run. And then of course, I, as VP membership, I'll send a chat to every guest that we have privately and try to gather their information.
One of the things I'd like to acknowledge you for is the fact that you're using past members who may have just drifted away for whatever reason as an opportunity, because even if they are not interested, they know people that probably will be interested. So you can always say in your communication, not just, I hope you'll come, but I hope you'll forward this on to anybody you think can benefit from Toastmasters, that there would be value of the Toastmasters experience. Because it just feels like whenever you have a conversation with someone, inevitably they'll say, oh, Toastmasters. Everybody seems to know about it,
Yeah.
but they're not
Well,
all
that's
here.
great.
So we need to,
That's
reach
really
out
good
to
advice. I like that. Just to kind of not just reach out to the past members, but to encourage them to think about who might be interested, who would benefit from it.
Yeah, and to
Great.
help the club. I mean, most of them will have some, I would assume that we all have, most of us have positive affinity. That's why we continue to stay, right, with our club. And so if someone's drifted away, I know I would want to support my club even if I had to leave. But again, I'm going to, and Alan, you may have already, you've probably already thought of this because you've been doing the Zoom for quite some time, is again, think outside the box. Think outside of, we tend to kind of think, we often think narrowly, and I really want to encourage you, if you know someone in another country, someone at a different time zone, just put the word out. I've seen Coach Masters is a fairly new club. Thinking they've been chartered since December, and I think they had a Zoom call the first or second week of all this craziness. And that second week, they had 3 guests, all of them from somewhere else. Somebody who I believe was in Michigan decided to join. So you don't know that it was just friend kind of thing. So we are giving somebody, it sounds a little corny to say the gift of, right? But it really is a gift if they are terrified, comfortable, don't know how to speak in a presentation or in a group. So I think we can be of service to people by sharing that information. Does anyone else have any experience or any ideas? Lori, I see you there. Do you have any experience or ideas that you'd like to share in terms of past invites or outreach?
You've mentioned a lot of things, Kathleen. So they all sound great.
Okay. Anybody else have something they'd like to suggest, or maybe something you'd like to try?
Kathleen, if I may jump in one more time. Am I on mute? No, I'm not. Okay. I wanted to just mention some advice that I was given by gentleman Jeff Carr, who had a fantastic open house that he ran last year, and that is to make the schedule of speakers and evaluators not just impressive so that guests would come, but actually sort of diverse, so you can encapsulate, young and old members, and maybe from different backgrounds, so that you're really showing the diversity and inclusion of your club. That seems to be some of the best advice I've heard. And one last thing that I wanted to mention, you mentioned closing earlier, and I thought that was really great. There were 2 things. One, I put in the chat, Eldred had shared about, doing a raffle, and you were talking about trying to gather the guests' information. What a great way to combine the 2, and to say, to enter into this raffle, send your name, phone number, and email address via chat. Yes. And that way you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And it is important to consider that anybody who shows up to an open house is there because they're interested. So maybe even as a warm-up or engaging thing, something about asking them why they're there right now, today. What made them join, not just, who told them or suggested they should do it. And I'm from Toastmasters, professionally speaking, 3091, to answer someone's question.
Who is that guy?
Ken Coombs has a question.
Just one sec. The point you made about the raffle and being able to say, if you'd like to be entered into this raffle, I would just make sure, I would say you want it to be a meaningful raffle. So something that they would find useful, because you don't want them to go, I don't need another mug. But they might want a book on leadership or communication or tiny habits, or, you know, whatever what's ever on the list. And sometimes you can find good deals here and there, particularly like at Powell's, you know, because they may have a lightly used version or a brand new version, and then you can kind of choose and pick. But those are all places to look. And it's not about, I know many clubs have a solid budget, in which case go ahead and spend the money if it allows you to kind of embrace and that person gets that feeling of connection. Who else had a question?
Go, Ken.
I think I shared this in the chat, but I might have shared it in a private chat. If we're doing online meetings, your raffle prize could be an ebook you could send to them.
Yes.
Or something digital like that. I know I prefer paper, but hey, we have to live with our own online world right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what everybody's skill set is, but kind of trying to think of what your club or club members might be able to offer. Like if there's somebody is a coach, or if somebody is a color consultant, or if somebody is, you know, I mean, again, the sky's kind of the limit in terms of, do you have a skill set? Is somebody a photographer and could do your headshot? What if you gave, if you, oh, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? If you had somebody that had a good camera and you're relatively good at taking headshots and the weather's getting good, so you can do some nice ones with bright color. But what about, yeah, guest that day, get free headshots, or something along those lines. What are some other things that we could use as incentives?
Yeah, Kathleen, one of the chats just came in. I would love to hear more from others. If you hold a raffle, ideas for virtual delivery of prizes. I've heard great ideas from 2 people and love to hear more. And 2, I have found that free food is a super important part of an in-person open house. What are suggestions as an alternative for being online?
Well, let's throw that out to the group. What do you guys think?
This is Neil from Test Masters with UL. I don't know how much it really draws people, but it could easily be adapted as a test. We use Teams, which like Zoom allows you to change the background. And every week we have a blast kind of seeing not necessarily who has the best background, but talking about different people's backgrounds. So maybe it could be arranged as a contest to see who can come up with the most creative background. Something to be mindful of with this is some computers do not meet Zoom if you're using Zoom's minimum specifications for changing the background. Mine technically doesn't, but I think it's let me do so in the past, or it just gave me a warning saying that I didn't technically meet the requirements, but it didn't say I couldn't.
Great. Any other?
You froze.
I froze? Oh, that's another fun thing. You guys are good at making me remember things. I was in a meeting recently where a lot of people were late to the meeting. So there were probably, I don't know, 30 of us there, and they were probably expecting at least another 20. And so they said, okay, we're going to come up with a code word. And when we use that code word halfway in or some way into the meeting, everybody freeze. And none of the people who came in late will know what's going on. And we just did it for fun, for laughs. Again, it's just another way of being playful. So going back to Neil's comment, you're absolutely right, Neil. My computer does not support. I was sad to learn, because it's a new computer. I think I would have gotten a different one if I could play with virtual backgrounds. But yeah, that's a great idea, is come up with something fun to do in the meeting. That gets everybody kind of thinking and being creative. And so I know, like I said, Merylhurst did a funny hat night, and they didn't even plan it. Everybody just showed up with a funny hat, is from what I understand. What other kind of incentives could we use if we are not meeting in person? Oh, and we've got a red nose. So everybody could show up with a red nose. Any other thoughts?
Something fun that I recently won at an open house was an award for being the person to log in from the greatest geographical distance.
Ah.
Because
So
this was an open house in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I logged in from Portland, Oregon.
Nice.
Of course,
so
it was my Region Advisors Club too.
Did they acknowledge you by like a clap of hands or?
Oh, she acknowledged me as part of it was the long distance, and part of it is the host of the open house is also our region advisor. So that's
Gotcha.
why I attended.
Okay.
So we have a working relationship already.
All right.
This
In
is,
terms
this
of
is
other
Paul
incentives-
again.
Yeah,
I know that, oh, go ahead, Kathleen, sorry.
No, Paul, you.
I was just going to say that, you know, one of the things I've seen is gift cards for local restaurants, local businesses. Like recently I received one for Grand Central Bakery, and, you know, it's a way to support a local business.
Yeah.
And, basically it was just a gift card that I had received over email. So there are ways to give out prizes like that and also be supporting local businesses.
I think that's a great idea. So you could send basically an e-gift card, right?
Exactly.
And it's all done via email. So you could buy it in like $5. May I be so nosy as to ask what your increment was? How much was it?
I want to say it was like $20.
Okay. And that's a nice one. So maybe you can even have like 1 for $5, 1 for 10, 1 for 20, and kind of have some fun with that. Or I don't know, other thoughts on that, folks, in terms of, I think most
You know what would be a great gift card would be something like DoorDash, or, you know, any sort of delivery service that supports local restaurants. But you could also, my thought when he mentioned supporting local businesses and getting gift cards, you know, any VP membership who's going out, you could ask the actual local business if they could provide that as a donation to get them some business. At the same time, you're simultaneously advertising for the open house. And you could even, you know, if you're doing this in person, you could offer to put flyers at that places, but that's not really happening right now. But if you have a generous donor of some sort of local business, you could actually advertise for them on your Facebook page, and even vice versa. Maybe they can advertise for your open house on their page.
And taking a moment to think about organizations, I saw somebody ask the question recently: is how do we host? And I'm aware that our meeting end date was 8 o'clock, but I'm just going to go into this is going to overflow to 8:15. So those that have to leave, feel free. Those that want to stay on, let's keep brainstorming. If there is a local association or like a networking organization, Brian Cargill, for example, is starting up a new advanced club that is all entrepreneur related. And so if you go on to Meetup, if you go just Google, you know, if you just go into a browser and type in networking in Portland, up come, you know, young professionals, up come, I mean, they're all different things. Rotary's young professionals, activist groups that are, you know, people who need to speak or are speaking. There's all kinds of organizations. There's women only, there's young, not so young, but be creative, because if you can network with any of them and invite them, kind of cross-pollinate, you can invite them to the open house. You can ask if they're doing something that you can come over and support or encourage as well. I know that Toast to Old Town is located next to Northwest Natural, and I believe it's ODOT. And so I know ODOT has their own club, but there may be people that can't go to that club meeting. So they, you know, because of the particular time of day that it meets, but they could walk literally across the street and participate in Toast to Old Town. So look for ways that they were going to look at having their executives reach out to executives at those two organizations, and then let them know about what's happening within Toastmasters, the value that it offers the employees, and then try and bring some people in that way.
You know, one quick thought, you had mentioned earlier that a great topic or subject for a meeting, an open house, would be something about getting people working again. And a great raffle prize there might be if there's a local provider who helps with writing resumes or something of that nature. So, I actually, that just popped in my head. I have a brother-in-law who I bet you would be willing to do that for me as a added prize. Just starting to, I guess, you got my wheels turning about having a number of prizes and giving them out to different, having sort of throughout every 10 minutes, maybe you can have a different prize as depending on who's there.
And that would be a fun way to break up the meeting. Instead of waiting to do all of them at the end, like every 15 minutes, boom, another one, kind of throwing it out there. Also, the idea being that perhaps this person who maybe could do resume writing comes and does it. Maybe they come and do a speech and a workshop, and then that way they get exposure, right? And they get practice. But it's also an opportunity to hand out, well, it wouldn't be handing out cards, but to connect with people. But it's an opportunity also for then that person to offer up a raffle prize of, half hour of their service, or a graphic designer or someone who does anything from business cards to, could also do resumes, could also do other kinds of logos, templates, things of that sort. If you know anybody that does that, they might be willing to donate, again, some of their time to help somebody out. If people are wanting to become more focused on professional speaking, the one sheet, is that what's called, the one sheet? The one something that describes who they are, what kind of speaking they do. Again, some people need to get those done, and working with a graphic designer to kind of help at least narrow down some options would be good. Any other thoughts? Because we can always, if we have their contact information, potentially we could mail them something. So again, coffee mug, something from Toastmasters. But I'm thinking that you've brought up experiences, and I think those are wonderful, and they do support local businesses. Any other questions, thoughts?
One question that I had and wanted to see if this has crossed your minds or if it's come up is, if we're attracting new members virtually, there's a chance that perhaps once we start meeting in person again, that our physical location is not really conducive to their work schedule or where they're located. So just from a logistical standpoint, what are some ways around that? Have any of you experienced any of that where you've attracted new members and he or she had realized, oh, maybe this won't work for me once we start meeting in person again?
Anybody have any thoughts to share? PJ?
Yes, that's called a blended club, where you have to have a minimum of 51% of your members meeting in person, and then 49% can be remoting in. The TI has some pretty strict rules on this right now. They have to be able to do both video and audio, and you can't have more than 49% remote. You have to have the majority in person. And let's see, you can't make recorded speeches. It has to be live. Those are the main ones that come to the top of my mind. Now, there was a discussion on this. Did you happen to attend the discussion last Sunday morning about whether we should encourage blended clubs in the district? Paul, did you see that? Okay.
No,
yeah, we had quite a discussion about that. And the feeling is some of us may go rogue on this because where my home club meets, it's not a problem in the winter because it's an old church building. They have heat, but they don't have air conditioning. And in the summertime, our meeting room gets well over 100 degrees. And when I say well over, I mean, it's probably been 115 or 120 degrees in there on some of the days. And we literally had a woman faint, get woozy and had to sit down because of the heat. So during that discussion, we were talking about, well, gosh, during the winter when it's icy and snowy, we just meet online instead of going to the church. Or in the summer when it's 90 degrees or 100 degrees, we meet online. Well, unfortunately, the current rules don't allow that. But as someone pointed out, it's easier to beg forgiveness than seek permission. So there was some discussion about going rogue. Now, here's my plea to all of you. If you would like to consider having that option, the way we change things is we lobby Toastmasters International. So have your club officers send a letter to TI or an email to TI asking them to change that. And I am the district director-elect. That is hard to say. And I assure you that I'm going to be lobbying with anybody at TI who will listen to me next year to change this. So there, that's my more than my 2 cents worth. That ought to be worth at least $1, Kathleen.
At least.
And I hope that answers your question, Paul. Yeah.
Yes,
and
it
I would
did.
also say that what PJ just said is really important, because if you think about where we were 3 or 4 months ago and where we are today, who knows where we're going to be 3 or 4 months from now. So the idea that Toastmasters has to go through the same process we're going through, they're trying to figure this out. They're trying to come up with resources. They're trying to, I assume, maintain kind of their business plan, but also now realizing they have to be flexible. So the more we say, hey, I'm a Toastmaster, I would love a blended club for whatever reason, you know, please keep this in mind in terms of continuing it or allowing a different, whatever the shape Toastmasters becomes. Charles, PJ,
Just one more thing. Another thing to consider, you can have an in-person club, a blended club, or an online club. We've been doing online clubs right now. Everybody's on Zoom. It is more complicated and more challenging to have a blended club because you have to have the setup at your physical location that allows the person on the remote computer visibility of everybody in the room, and they have to be able to hear everybody in the room. And likewise, everybody in the room has to be able to hear the people and see the people who are there. Now, if you have a big screen TV, like at the NWEA building, that is fantastic. It's set up for professional video conferencing. Or if you have a projector that you can project your laptop up onto a screen so that you can see the people instead of just these teeny tiny boxes on a laptop. So there are some considerations there as well. And one other thing I just wanted to mention, I said your job is to lobby TI to change. Kathleen mentioned Toastmasters is very different than it was 3 months ago. TI is recognizing that they have to be flexible and adaptable. During that discussion on whether we wanted to have blended clubs, I made the comparison to marijuana laws. Marijuana is still listed as a Schedule I drug with the federal government. But how many states now have legalized private use of marijuana? And you know, the tide is there. At some point, the federal government's going to have to roll over and say, okay, we give up. And you know, if you do research on this, it was a ridiculous decision in the first place back in Nixon era. All the research said marijuana was a Schedule III or Schedule IV drug, which is virtually nothing. And it was a political decision. It was purely political that it was made a Schedule I drug, which is absolutely ludicrous. But anyway, sorry, get off my soapbox. Lobby TI that you want to smoke pot. No, I mean lobby TI that you want to have blended meetings. Okay.
Thank you, PJ. Charles, you've been waiting really patiently. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have a question actually. My club, Civil Tongues, has a Facebook page, but the last person to edit it is long gone. Can anyone tell me how to gain editing access if the person who did register with Facebook as the editor is gone?
Eric, do you have any experience with that? I know that happened in our club.
Hi. Well, you need to know who was the admin of that page. If you only had one admin, that's a mistake that should not be made again. You should have multiple people who have authority to manage your page. People you trust, of course, club members. In our case, we had to go back and connect with somebody who had been a member several years ago, but fortunately we still had her contact information, and so we were in good shape. lacking the information on who it was or how to get in touch with that person, I truly don't know. It's possible you can start from scratch. You can close that Facebook page, start a new Facebook page for your club with multiple admins and shared responsibility, and update that admin list as members leave the club, remove them and replace them with someone new. Therefore, all your eggs are not in one basket, and you are able to adjust to the comings and goings of members.
Well, if I don't know the name of the admin, I know a lot of the former members, but nobody can remember who had the job at the time. How can I close the page without admin privileges?
So I'm looking online, and it's on facebook.com help. What happens when a Facebook group doesn't have any admins? It's basically saying if a group has moderators but no admins, only a moderator can claim the role of admin. So if you don't know who the admins are, do you know who the moderators are?
Well, is there a way I can find out from the page itself?
Yeah, I don't know.
That cross-reference with our former contact information.
Charlie?
Right now, nobody knows.
Charlie, I had that experience with one of the youth clubs that I work with at Toastmasters. You cannot close the page due to the fact that you've got to have the admin to be able to close the page, and we could never find the admin nor that. We had to actually start a new page up. And unfortunately, the old page still remains there. We fought with Facebook for about 6 months trying to prove that we were the organization, but they would not give us any information, nor would they close the page for us. So the easiest thing would be to start from scratch, as Eric indicated.
That verifies my fears. I can probably track down our old club coach and maybe he can help me, but thank you for the information.
Yeah, you might look at the help site in terms of their community questions. It looks like a lot of people seem to have this issue. All right. Any other thoughts? All right. Well, I want to thank Dave Bones. I would like to thank you particularly since you said you were not going to be able to come.
Well, could I impose on a question by any chance, Kathleen?
Yeah, of course. I've got the time. Totally up to you guys.
Oh, great. This might have been talked about before. I was pretty busy on the chat. I might have been distracted, but I love this idea of the hybrid club, the blended club. And I'm curious, is it too early to find out if there's any flagship clubs out there doing this that we could, see as concrete examples that we could perhaps model?
Yeah, well, as PJ pointed out, it kind of depends on the club. So Toast to Us, which is in right across the street from the Chinese Garden.
Oh, okay.
Are you familiar with Hillary Hunt?
Yeah, I know her name. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're welcome to reach out to me, and I'll give you her email. Okay. I'll also give you the VP of PR's email, so you can just invite yourself. They meet noon on Thursdays.
Wow. Okay.
And they are set up. It's a beautiful. The corporate office has 2 beautiful rooms. One is huge, but they're set up with cameras and beautiful screens and microphones, and depending on which room you're in, you have different experiences. One's a standard, just beautiful, traditional, meeting room. But the idea for them, which I thought was fascinating, and you guys can think about this if you work for companies and know of organizations, they have over 250, or at least they did at the time, over 250 contractors. So like independent contractors or vendors that they worked with. They allowed them to come in and be a member if they wanted to. So there are ways to be creative. And then there are smaller clubs that, trying to think, Eldred, Lori, do you know anybody in your areas that, Tamsin, can you think of any other club that, PJ, you're waving?
In the chat room, somebody said that New Horizons and Feedbackers are both blended clubs.
Okay.
I do have to offer I do have to offer a correction. The toast to us, I think you might actually be referring to the toast of Old Town.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Toast to Old Town. My apologies.
Old
But
Town.
it's still
Okay.
Hillary Hunt.
Yes.
Yeah, if you get Hillary, you'll get the right place.
Toast to
Hey,
us.
I will
good.
follow up with you on that, Kathleen. Thank you.
Of course. I was going to say
Yeah,
there's
just
another
as
option potentially of Toast to Us, because they are U.S. Bank and they have a big, beautiful room. I just don't know that they ever went out to get people remotely. But now that we are in this pandemic situation, they may have chosen to do that. I can probably see if that's the case.
Great. Well, I'm interested in the topic. Again, it's a little bit hard for me to completely picture, but I'm interested.
Yeah, it is an interesting. I would say I had the opportunity to coach the NWA club, and it was a great experience for me, just so I could learn all of it. So those would be good reasons to coach a club or mentor a club that has that technology, because you get a really good experience doing it that way.
Excellent. Yeah.
All right. Well, we are now at 8:25. Anybody else have any last minute questions?
Well, I was hoping I could bring up incentives like Kathleen mentioned earlier tonight with more people here, but it's good for us who are here to know what the incentives are. So I'll go ahead and share them with you. Open house incentive, the district will reimburse $50 of open house expenses. Now, I have seen that online open houses generally don't cost clubs any money, but in case it does, we will reimburse up to $50 of that. And we do have the Beat the Clock incentive. Sign up 5 new members by the end of June and you'll get a ribbon from Toastmasters International for your banner and 10% discount off of your next Toastmasters shop order. And I did see some really good this year only awards that you should have received if you're a club leader. That came out earlier today from International. I haven't had a chance to read it thoroughly yet, but there are some really good awards that are effective for this year only and recognize specifically the challenges we had dealing with COVID-19. So I recommend you read that letter if you got it.
Eldred, are you available for a question? Or Kathleen, is that okay if I ask Eldred a question?
Sure.
Oh, Eldred, I'm just curious. I mean, the timing is perfect for this, actually. So I'm so glad that you told us about this, Kathleen. We are going to be holding an online open house, our first one, on the 11th of June. And is there any incentives for us available in that regard?
If the open house costs any money to put on, then the district will reimburse up to $50 of that.
Now, what if we invested that, say, in prizes? I mean, I was fascinated by this idea of the Amazon prizes. Would that fall into that category, or is that more something separate?
That falls under that category.
Okay, I will email you.
That, but I will count if I have Emily's okay, I will count that.
Yeah, I'll email you. I won't take everybody's time with that.
Okay.
Well, I think it's worth clarifying. As a nonprofit, TI has some pretty strict rules on what kind of prizes we can give. They discourage cash prizes. For example, I had an incentive where I could not give like a Visa gift card with just cash. I gave gift cards for your choice of Office Depot or Fred Meyer because theoretically you can go there and buy supplies for your club. So, what you do with the card after you get it, I don't know, but there are some rules that we just have to watch out for. And one of the things that's always fair game is we can provide gift certificates for buying things from the TI store.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Those are always legal, we'll say.
Excellent advice. Thank you. I'm so